Welcome to episode 5 of Hockey Unfiltered with Ken Campbell. I am the sidekick, Dylan Waugh. I am the Radar O'Reilly to Ken's Colonel Potter. I guess if you get that reference, you're probably not listening to a podcast. We got a huge show today. We're talking about the Montreal Canadiens signed a new GM, Akim Aliu. We're going to talk about Ken's fond thoughts about the All-Star game. Check us out, like, review, subscribe, all that great stuff. If you're on YouTube, hi. Ken, how's tricks?
Not bad. I got the Wordle on the third row today.
Weren't you one of the ones complaining about people tweeting their Wordle?
Oh, yeah.
And now you're putting it on a podcast.
No, I'm just saying it. I'm not putting it out there. Like, I can't believe people, like, actually said, like, the first couple of times it was like, what the heck is this?
Yeah.
Like, I don't care how you did it, but I'm really happy that it, like, there was one my wife and I did, and it was proxy, and we got it on the third line.
Right.
So I'm basically saying well, you know, when it comes to words, like Steve Martin said, some people, you know, have a way with words and others not have way, I guess.
There was similarly, that's actually a joke, and I wonder if Steve Martin got it from here. That's a joke from Hee Haw.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh man, what's his name? Roy Jones.
No, not Roy Jones. The guy,
Roy Clark.
Roy Clark, yeah.
Roy Clark, fantastic, most underrated musician of all time.
Yeah, let's not go too far into this rabbit hole.
No problem.
Okay?
Roy Clark said about one of the other cast members, sometimes he has a way with words and sometimes words have a way with him.
Nice. Not bad.
I thought that was good. So if you're checking us out on YouTube, hello, we can see you. Please subscribe and comment. That's always great stuff. If you're checking us out on any other podcasting platform, subscribe and comment is great stuff. This is all the housekeeping that we've got to do, right?
Right.
And if you want the podcast sent directly to your inbox, please subscribe to Hockey Unfiltered, the Substack, kencampbell.substack.com. And of course, Ken's writing and all the rest of it, you're going to want a paid subscription, to be honest. But start free.
Start free. The podcast is always free.
First hit is free.
The podcast is always free, but there's more stuff you have to pay for, but there's some free stuff on there as well.
Yeah.
But we're aiming to get you to get off your wallets without question.
That's another
support the work.
That's another Hee Haw joke.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
How do you know about Hee Haw?
I don't know. I'm a big bluegrass fan.
Did you watch Lawrence Welk when you were a kid too, or what?
No.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
No, some Bonanza though. Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, we're losing.
Way off.
Yeah, people.
Okay.
I can hear people turning it off as we speak. So,
well, listen, I love the good segues. So, speaking of going way off track,
right?
Why don't we just start off with Leon Draisaitl?
Oh, okay.
Boom.
Yeah, bow.
Got it.
Yeah. No, I'm too pissy to talk about him. Okay. I'm a member of the media, obviously. I really hate it when media guys make themselves the story and make it out like we have such a difficult job, because I've been in this business for more than 30 years and I don't feel like I've ever worked a day in my life. The people in hockey that I've dealt with in the past, players, coaches, managers, administrators, everybody, for the most part, are wonderful human beings who are very, very eager and willing to deal with people. And I'm grateful for that. Jim Matheson is a Hall of Fame writer.
Yeah.
As he should be. Mm-hmm. He's one of the best. He's a pro's pro. He's been at it for a million years. He covered the Oilers when they were great, and then he's covered them in the last couple of decades when they've been far less than that. I guess what I would say about that exchange between Leon Draisaitl and Jim Matheson yesterday is, and calling it as an unbiased observer, because I mean, I do have the bias towards the media guy, right. But calling it as an unbiased observer, I don't think either Jim Matheson or Leon Draisaitl distinguished himself particularly well yesterday. there's obviously got to be a backstory to it.
Yeah.
And part of the problem is that, like, there was a time in Long Island where Darcy Tucker and I went basically toe to toe. And it actually started out a lot like this one.
Yeah.
Where he was just giving me stupid answers. And I was like, I basically said, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
You know, I don't think I said, why are you so pissy? But I said, like, what's up your behind?
Yeah.
You know, and he got into it with me as to exactly why he was angry with me. We went toe to toe. No cameras were there to catch it. The whole world didn't see it. Mm-hmm. There were a couple of other writers around when it happened. And by the end, we were both laughing about it. And we had patched up our difference right there and then.
Yeah.
And it was done. It was over.
Yeah.
It was over. It was a good story. Mike Zeisberger loves to tell it all the time because he was one of the writers that was there.
Yeah.
Great writer for NHL.com, Mike Zeisberger. But that's the problem, right? Like, if something like this happens, and, you know, we don't have that right now. For the last 2 years, we haven't had that forum with the players.
Yeah.
You know, there was a time, and there has been a time, and I don't think it's like this now. In fact, I know it's not like this now. But when I covered the Leafs for the Toronto Star back in the days when mastodons roamed the earth, you could sit, like I could sit and talk to Dmitry Yushkevich about his kids. Yeah. And I was in my 30s. I had young kids myself. Like Glenn Healy and I had kids the same age. Yeah. And so we'd talk about our kids. We'd talk about, you know, our lives. We'd kibitz. We'd, you know, and then you get around to talking about hockey. Yeah. And at that time, if somebody had a problem with something that I had written, they'd come to me and say, "You're full of shit." You know, I remember one time talking to Gary Robertson. He said, "I'm sorry, Ken, your questions are just stupid and I'm not going to answer them." And I was like, okay, that's fair. I get it.
Yeah.
That's fine. I don't agree with you. But anyways, you know, I mean, that they don't have that anymore. Mm-hmm. You know, they trot these guys out twice a week. You know, I mean, Leon Draisaitl's, you know, got to be in a pretty bad place right now as far as, you know, how he feels about things are going. So it's not a good, it's a kind of a toxic brew to start with. And then Jim tries to get the answer and he doesn't get the answer he wants. And then it turns into a bit of an FU contest. And like I said, I don't think either guy particularly distinguished himself. Yeah. The way I see this unfolding is this is going to be a story for about another 24 hours and then it's going to go away. I suspect if there hasn't already been, there's going to be a communication between these two guys and they're going to work it out and we're going to move on.
Well, that's why you got to get it in on the podcast now because it'll be 24 hours and then the story goes away. I kind of agree with you. Like our news cycle really blows things out of proportion. The reality is that people are going to, like, there's always going to be a certain amount of friction between media and players. If there wasn't, then I don't think that they're doing their jobs right.
Right.
And it keeps on reminding me of the Jacques Plante quote. How would you feel if every time you screwed up at your job, a red light went on 10,000 people booed you?
Yeah.
And so Matheson was not caught on his best day and he did not ask his best questions. It happens.
Well, he asked a good question, but he didn't get the answer he wanted, and then things deteriorated from there.
Yeah.
I have no problem with him asking tough questions like that. That's not a big deal. And you know, I mean, you're right. I mean, when Pat Quinn coached the Toronto Maple Leafs, I remember Pat Quinn in the fondest of ways. He was a wonderful human being, a great man. I learned a ton about the game covering the team that he coached in Toronto. But there were days when he would just go after us like there was no tomorrow. Mm-hmm. You know, I remember there was one time when I was in a press conference and I asked him something and he said, "Well, why should I answer your question? You're just going to write what you want anyways." Like in front of all my peers and everybody, tried to belittle me like that. Yeah. And I just came back and I said, "Look, Pat, I'll make you a deal. The day you start signing my paychecks is the day I'll start writing what you want me to write." You know? Yeah. So it happens. It happens. And you know, like I said, I think this will have a very short shelf life. Yeah. And like I said, if there hasn't already been, there probably will be some communication between these two guys and everybody's just going to move on.
Yeah, I completely agree. Should we move on?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think so.
Montreal Canadiens.
Vaguely aware of them.
You're vaguely aware of them. Yes. They are a team that plays in a court of law.
Right.
Yes. They're en route to possibly their worst season ever in franchise history.
Oh, they're going to hit it.
Yeah.
By a fairly significant margin.
Yeah. And they bring in a new GM.
Right.
Kent Hughes.
Yep.
Who?
Kent who?
Kent who?
Kent who?
I think that because they missed out on drafting any of Hughes, they thought, well, we can hire one.
Yeah, not the same family, but
I know, but it's,
but he actually does have a son named Jack who's up for the draft this year.
I do know that. But he's projected like 7th or something like that.
Wow, he's 7th on Central's North America list.
Right.
So they separate North America and Europe. So there's still a couple of guys from Europe probably, and I don't think they put goalies in. So when it's all said and done, he's probably outside of the top 10. So the Habs are not even going to be close to drafting this guy. So,
but Montreal has a long distinguished history of using 3rd and 2nd overall draft picks at guys that are not supposed to be in the top 10.
Right. Okay.
I suppose that's under the last administration.
The last administration. Yeah.
Yes.
So, Kent who? Well, Kent Hughes, I think is a really great choice. He's really simpatico with Jeff Gordon.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to trust the person with whom you're working, and there's a real trust and familiarity between these two guys.
Yeah.
And I mean, Kent Hughes has been in the game for 30 years.
Yeah.
For more than 30 years. He played it at a fairly decently high level. Mm-hmm. I mean, Division 3 isn't Division 1, but it's a lot further than almost everybody else gets.
Yeah, exactly.
He was a star at Division 3.
Yeah.
He got his law degree from Boston College, became an agent, has been an agent in Boston for the past 25 years, probably, I want to say.
Yeah.
Has had some of the biggest stars in the game.
Yeah.
Vinny Lecavalier was his client. Patrice Bergeron did the Darnell Nurse deal this past summer.
Yeah.
Chris Letang.
Yeah.
He's had some heavy hitters. He's got a good relationship with a lot of GMs in this league. Mm-hmm. He knows the game and he knows the business. People are talking about how well he knows the CBA. I'm not sure that's a big deal. Like everybody knows the CBA now. Like everybody, like that's a given. It's like work hard. It's like a guy works hard. He plays in the NHL. Of course he works hard.
Yeah.
A guy's an administrator or in a management level of an NHL team. Of course he knows the CBA inside out.
Yeah.
That's what he has to know.
Yeah.
A lot of guys know the CBA. That still doesn't stop them from making really, really dumb decisions.
Yeah.
Like Mark Bergevin knows the CBA inside out. I can guarantee you.
Yeah.
That didn't stop him from putting the Canadiens into salary cap hell.
Yeah.
Right? So that, like, you're going to be judged on how you build the team and your vision and all those other things. Yeah. And I think Kent Hughes is a really good choice. I think he brings a level-headed, measured approach to a situation that needs that now more than ever.
Yeah.
This is a historically bad team. Like, historically bad. Like, it's the worst ever. Probably the worst team they will have ever had in 110, 12 years, whatever it is now. 114 years.
Yeah.
Man.
The Marc Dumont on Twitter referred to the new Montreal Canadiens head office as the triumvirate, which I thought was a funny expression. Of course, that was before the emperor in Rome. They had the triumvirate of 3 people that ruled, and Pompey and Caesar and one other loser was part of that. But I thought it was a funny reference, but I didn't feel like it was apt in the sense that.
Well, what's the third part of it?
I guess it would be Jeff Molson.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He's still around.
I guess.
Yeah, he still owns the thing, right?
Yeah.
But my point is that I didn't think that it was very apt because I thought the thing that seems so incredible about this, and you expanded on it in your writing, is the Eagles get checked at the door.
You would hope.
This is not going to be forces pushing against each other like a social Darwinism kind of experiment.
Right.
This is people that are truly pulling together for a common goal.
Right, exactly. And, there was an agent who told me, a lot of agents throw shit at the wall, but, Ken Hughes was not a shit at the wall kind of guy.
Yeah.
He really did his research. He was very, competitive and passionate, but was able to separate negotiations from emotion, right?
Yeah.
And so he's not the kind of guy that's going to get into a big public, display in the media when he's negotiating a guy's contract. So you would assume he's going to bring that to the other side of the table as well. And Jeff Gorton's the same way. They're going to go about their business. They're going to do it quietly. They're going to do it professionally, and they're going to see where it goes.
Yeah.
For me, it's really interesting here what the Montreal Canadiens and speaking of segues, what's their first order of business, right? Jeff Gorton and Kent Hughes. What do they have to do, right? What do they have to do first? Well, okay, I mean, they're going to trade Ben Sherratt at the trade deadline. They're going to do whatever they do at the trade deadline. They're going to fire Dominic Ducharme either sometime this season or in the offseason.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all a given. That's, we know those things are going to happen. They're going to get what they get for Ben Sherratt. I don't think it's going to be as good as what everybody thinks it's going to be.
Yeah.
Because
it's not McDavid one for one.
No. And I mean, yeah. So they're going to get whatever they get for him, and they're going to move on and whatever. To me, right now, the Montreal Canadiens are at a crossroads like they've never been at in franchise history.
Yeah.
And so what Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton, and to, I suppose, another extent, Jeff Molson, have to decide is, what's our long-term vision for this franchise? How are we going to approach this? Mm-hmm. And so do they say, okay, this year was a write-off. Nobody thought we'd be this bad this year. We weren't supposed to be this bad this year. We're not this bad. Let's go on the assumption that we're going to be able to build this thing back up fairly quickly, and we're going to be at least decent.
Mm-hmm. That's
one. Okay. The other school of thought is, do we strip it down to the wood?
Yeah.
And it's not as clear cut as you might think. Okay.
No, it's not.
So this year they may be the team, the league's worst team. Okay. So you only have a 25% chance of winning the lottery.
Yeah.
So let's say they are the worst team. Let's say they get the first overall pick. They pick Shane Wright. Okay. Or by the end of the year, I don't know that it's not going to be like a guy like Carter Savoie.
Mm-hmm.
This is a kid that's leading the Western League in scoring with like 53 points.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's going to be as clear-cut a decision as you think. So, okay, so you do that. Now is where the rubber hits the road.
Right.
Next year. What do you do next year?
Mm-hmm.
And specifically, do you tank?
Right.
Right? Okay, because next year, there are 3 players available.
Yeah.
One of them is Connor Bedard, who we had on the show a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
One of them is Matvei Michkov.
Yeah.
The Russian kid. The third is a kid who's playing in Chicago, the USHL, by the name of Adam Fantilli, and he's huge, and he's going to Michigan next year, and he's going to be a star.
Mm-hmm.
You finish last overall, no matter what happens in the lottery, you are guaranteed to get one of those players.
Right.
Right? In the 2023 draft.
Yeah.
So what do you do? What do you do? Do you burn it to the ground?
Yeah.
And if you do, see that if you go that route, there's all kinds of decisions that come out of that. First of all, your coaching decision.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to go out and get a big time guy if it's just a placeholder who's there to see you through a tank or a bunch of bad years. Right. Mm-hmm. So then, okay, so we do decide we're going to embrace that. Does Brendan Gallagher want to go through that? Does Jeff Petrie want to go through that? Does Tyler Toffoli want to go through that?
Not a chance.
Do they? I don't know. I'm not saying they do or they don't, but you got to address that question. And if they don't, then you're faced with the prospect: do we start moving those guys out of here? And we really just take it down to the bone.
Yeah.
And we tank, and we get a bunch of good young players and good young prospects and picks. But when you make that decision, you have to realize that it's a 5 to 8 year rebuilding period. It's
Correct.
Not a 2-year rebuilding period. It's not, it's 5 to 8 years before you're in the position to start competing for a Stanley Cup. Will fans in Montreal go for that? I think if it's communicated to them in the right way, and there's an end game, and there's a plan, and that's not deviated from, I think people in Montreal are smart enough to know. Yeah, let's put up with the bad years for a couple of years, because we know in 4 or 5 years we are going to have a Stanley Cup contending team.
Yeah.
But so there's all kinds of, and so for me, the biggest decision that Jeff Gorton and Kent Hughes have to make is, where are we going with this?
Yeah.
Where are we going with this? The other stuff is all like, you're going to fire Dominic Ducharme. We all know that.
Yeah,
we all know that. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah.
Do you do it now? Do you do it after the season? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The trades don't matter. Like the Ben Sherratt trade doesn't, in the grand scheme of things, it's going to get them a couple of assets back. That's it.
Whatever,
first rounder, I guess.
A late first round pick or
I guess,
something.
maybe.
Yeah.
So that's a guy that is 4 years away, 2-3 years away from playing. At best, may never play. So to me, the biggest decision and the most important decision and the most vital decision, and the one that's gonna be the one that charts the course here, is what these guys decide they're gonna do with this franchise long term.
There's so much internal evaluation that's going to have to take place. You've got to figure out what you've got with Nick Suzuki. We know that he's a top 6 center. Is he a top line center?
Well, they're paying him like one. He's going to have to be.
Well, but
is he Patrice Bergeron? You hope.
Right.
Hope. Because there were times when I watched that kid play and I went, whoa.
Yeah.
He looks just like him.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah.
And Cole Caulfield and Alexander Romanov. And so if you say that that's your core, right, you've got to then figure out, is that an elite core, or do we need to tank and get more? Because
I think you do. I don't know that those 3 guys are the 3 guys that can pull you out of this, especially when you're young and you start losing all the time and it gets you down. And that's another thing they have to take into account here. Is, okay, you embrace the tank. Okay, that's all well and good. But what does it do to the guys you have, right?
Yeah.
And what kind of culture does it create? I would argue that the Buffalo Sabres are still affected by that losing culture they created when they tanked to get either Connor McDavid or Jack Eichel.
Yeah.
I was at a game that year. Arizona came in and it went to overtime, and Arizona scored in overtime, and that place went bonkers.
Yeah.
The fans went crazy. They were so thrilled.
It's gotta be hard.
And that's tough.
Yeah, that's gotta be hard.
That's really tough. So it's not a decision you can take lightly.
Yeah.
It's not a decision you can just, like, I hear these, I see these bloggers or, people on Twitter or whatever. Like, this isn't fantasy hockey, guys.
Yeah.
This is real.
Yeah.
This is real, with real people, real pros, real money, real everything.
Yeah.
So you can't just say, let's tank. Let's tank, get a bunch of good picks. That is one thing you can do.
Yeah.
But there's a whole other bunch of side effects that come with that.
Yeah.
That might not be the best thing ever. So that, to me, that's where it starts, ends, begins, and is going to be the most important decision that they make.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not saying that that core is a Stanley Cup core, but that does make the difference between, do we want to be competitive and are we okay with mid first round picks and try to have some competitiveness in the team?
Right.
Or do we need to really tank and make sure that we get the best picks available every time?
Yeah. Or are we really this bad? Did we wildly overachieve last year?
Yeah.
And are we really this bad? Probably not. I mean, say what you want about Carey Price, but I assume he makes them better. Jake Allen being available a little more makes them better.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see where these guys go, and their legacy is going to be, in my opinion, determined in the next couple of months.
Yeah. Before we get off of the Montreal Canadiens subject, going back to your article on Hockey Unfiltered, sign up at kencampbell.substack.com. But you wrote an article, and of course, if you want a lot of what we talk about is in these articles, and it's expanded upon there. But one thing that really stuck out to me, I'm going to mispronounce his name, but you said that there was such a huge amount of trust between Kent Hughes and Anton Thun.
Yeah.
I knew I was going to get it wrong. You said that there was such a huge amount of trust between Kent Hughes and Anton Thun that they never had an ink and paper agreement. For those listening and haven't read the article, they were the two player agents that came together to create the agency.
Yeah, they created M5 Sports.
That's right.
Kent Hughes had Impact Hockey, Anton Thun had AKT Sports, and they merged together in, I think, 2006 to form M5 Sports. Then they were bought out by Cortex Management, which is owned by the Saputo family, the cheese barons.
Right.
You know, so they were bought out. So then they were all together with guys like Darren Ferris, and there were some other people around there as well. Paul Capizano and Dylan Liptrap, a few other guys, who represents Logan Mailloux, but that's another conversation. Yeah.
I'm
so anyway,
so sick of relitigating the Mailloux discussion. Like not even just us, but like you can't even you can't even turn on Twitter anymore without a new relitigation and a new argument about it. I'm just like, I'm just tired of it.
Get used to it. But anyway, so Kent and Anton were together starting, I think, in 2006, 2007, something like that. And they formed this agency together. But it was basically, hey, you're in Boston, I'm in Toronto. I'll keep you apprised of what I'm doing here. You keep me apprised of what you're doing there. We'll keep recruiting people. And at the end of the year, we'll tally up what all the money we made and we'll split it. And we'll trust each other to be honest.
Yeah.
And so when you have that level of trust, I think it speaks to a person's integrity.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what you're getting.
I'm so glad that you said that it speaks to a person's integrity, because that level of trust is exactly what we have here. You know, no ink and paper agreement.
Oh, wait, I just thought
the only difference is that we don't have hundreds of millions of dollars to split up at the end of the day, but that's coming.
Is it? Oh, great. Hey, everybody, it's the moment we've all been waiting for, the NHL All-Star Game. No, wait a minute. The NFL playoffs are here. And with MyBookie, you can take home your biggest wins of the season thanks to their double deposit bonus. It's easy, actually. Sign up with MyBookie and use the promo code HockeyUnfiltered, all one word. Make your first deposit and bang, double your money instantly into your account up to $1,000. Where can you get a deal like that? Double your money. Now that you're loaded up and ready to go, it's time to place your bets with no regrets and get your wins when it matters most. Leading up to Super Bowl 56, the Buccaneers are looking good. The Packers are looking good, but will it be the Bills? Will it be the Chiefs? The field's wide open this year, so head to MyBookie and back your team to go all the way this postseason. Don't miss out. Double your first deposit up to $1,000 by using the promo code HockeyUnfiltered, all one word. Head to MyBookie, place your bets, and get ready for the unmatched intensity of NHL All-Star Hockey. Playoff football. But seriously, folks, we do rely on sponsorship here at Hockey Unfiltered. So if you do sign up, you'll be helping yourself and you'll be helping us. Thanks. We have hundreds of cents on that are riding on this.
There are tens of dollars.
There are tens of dollars that it's. Yeah.
All right, shall we move on from the Montreal Canadiens?
We shall.
Yeah. Earlier this week, Akim Aliu called out the NHL for more performative BS with its Carnegie initiative. Is it?
Well, he went on to say that if they really want to start somewhere, then rename the Conn Smythe Trophy, because Conn Smythe was the executive who at one time said, I would give $10,000 to anyone who could make Herb Carnegie white.
Yeah.
And Herb Carnegie was a star out east, a star player.
In Quebec.
Yeah, in Quebec. And he was black, obviously. Had two other black line mates. They were amazing hockey players.
Yeah. And
really, there's never been a color barrier in hockey, like an official color barrier like there was in baseball.
Yeah.
But the sort of the,
it's clear that there's
the underlying sort of theme is that there was an unofficial one.
Yeah.
Because guys like Herb Carnegie never got a chance.
Yeah.
And so there's something to that, I guess. I mean, it's hard to say. Like, so how do we reckon with hockey's past, right?
Yeah.
So you go down that rabbit hole, then, do you find out things about, the Norrises and the Jack Adams of the world, and, because they were not great people sometimes
Norris
too.
was a noted prick, I think. I'm pretty sure that he was pretty well known.
Well, there was a lot of guys that in the past that have awards named after them that probably have a bit of a checkered history as well. Does that mean we should never do anything and change anything? No.
Yeah.
But I think it's a conversation that's worth having. Like, those were words, and those were the words that people used at that time. Yeah. That was the vernacular people used at that time, and nobody thought it was anything. Yeah. But those were also words that contributed to the situation that existed.
Yeah.
So what do you do about that?
Self-propelling.
I'm not 100% sure. I mean, they're tearing down statues at Ryerson. For someone who did a ton of bad things and did some good things, and so I'm not sure, but I don't know if you go, let's take Conn Smythe's name off the trophy. But I think it's a conversation you have to have.
It's funny because I wasn't going to talk specifically about the statues at Ryerson, but the idea of tearing down statues and this kind of idea of, like, we don't want to destroy our past, but we have to acknowledge the horrible things that people have done in the past. I don't have an answer to that, but my answer here for the Conn Smythe is very simple. Because, first of all, like, who cares what I have to say about it, right?
Yeah.
Middle-aged, middle-class white guy speaks out on,
exactly. But, that's why I feel like I don't want to step too far out of my lane here, because I have no idea what the struggle is.
But what I'll say is, if I were in any sort of position of power, which thank goodness I'm not, because, but what I would say to the Hockey Diversity Alliance, to Akim Aliu, to, I would just say, is this a barrier for you? And if it's a barrier, and if it's a genuine barrier, yes, this is a well-known established fact. Conn Smythe was a unabashed racist, and kids coming up in the league have to see that and have to deal with that every day. Kids coming up from junior, from wherever, have to see that and have to reconcile with that every day. Then I don't care. For myself and for my age, what do I care about Conn Smythe?
Well, yeah, but it's also symbolic, right? It's a gesture that you make that says, okay, this is where we want to start to repair the relationship. Yeah. And we're willing to go this far to do it. Conn Smythe was the owner of the Toronto Maple Leafs, built Maple Leaf Gardens, built one of the biggest sports franchises in the world, and did a bunch of great things. But he also did this, and we're going to take his name off the MVP of the playoffs, one of the most cherished trophies that you can ever win. Like, to be named MVP of the playoffs is so special. Yeah. Because it means you brought it when it mattered. Game when it mattered the most. Yeah. And you were part of a team that won, and you were a pivotal part of the team that won. Yeah. So for us to make this gesture and to change this to the Wayne Gretzky trophy or whatever it is, that's a starting point. And I can see where that would be something that could start to heal the relationship. And so I don't know one way or the other, but I think, like I said, I think it's a dialogue that's worth having,
I think the same thing about the Blackhawks and the organizational name and how the organization defends themselves for their name and what I've seen people on Twitter say. And everything that I've read and everything that I've seen has been the opinions of one person or two people, normally white. And I just think it just shouldn't be up to us. If you've got a full community of people.
But right now we've got an opinion of someone who is in that marginalized community.
Yeah.
Career was arguably ended by the fact that, not ended, but it was affected by the fact that somebody said, turn off that N-word music in the dressing room. Yeah. So we've got somebody here who's saying it, who's standing up and saying it. So it has gravitas. It has gravitas when someone says it, when someone like that says it.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I'm saying, which is that it almost doesn't matter in terms of, you argue until you're blue in the face. At the end of the day, if you're going to turn around and say, look, I'm an Indigenous person from the Chicago area, and it just completely turns me off of hockey because the name is the Blackhawks, then what is sacred in the world? Like, why is the name of a sports organization sacred?
It's not.
It's not.
It's
right?
not.
And
like
why
it's like somebody said with
Conn
somebody.
Smythe's name
I had
sacred?
people say, "Well, it's their team, the Washington Redskins. It's their team. Like they should be able to call it whatever they want." Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if I ever get enough money, I'm going to start a team and call them the New York N-words.
Yeah.
That's my team.
Yeah.
Come on.
Perfectly fine.
Yeah.
You should buy like a really small, like a single A team here in Toronto, and whoever that person was you're having a conversation with, let's say the name is like Bill, call it like Bill's dumb. Bill's the stupidest guy I've ever had the misfortune of speaking with. It's my team and I can call it whatever I want.
On a sweater, but yeah. Okay, we've taken care of that.
We've taken care of that. We have solved the world's problems once again, Ken.
We have not, but
no.
But I like to think that we've made people think. That's what I want to do. I want to make people think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And whether they agree with me or not, which they usually don't, that's okay.
But
let's keep it civil.
If you were thinking in the last conversation, get ready to turn your brains off for the new segment. We're talking about the All-Star Game. Ken's favorite part of hockey.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. We're not talking about the game. We're talking about the selection process.
Okay.
And
sure.
And the quote unquote snubs.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about.
Okay.
Like, because the game is like, I've been to probably the last 10 All-Star games. I don't think I've even watched the last 5.
Right.
I just stopped watching them because I was there for access to the players anyways. I didn't care about any of this garbage that was going on.
Yeah.
Anyways, so you get Nathan MacKinnon coming out and saying it's a participation game because you have to name a player from each franchise.
Team, yeah.
And I mean, we all know that there's not a world that exists where Nick Suzuki is an all-star and Brad Marchand isn't. We know that. We know there's no world that exists where Clayton Keller is an all-star and Nazem Kadri isn't.
Correct.
And by the way, let's get this out of the way first of all. Clayton Keller is not an all-star. Nick Suzuki is not an all-star. None of these guys are all-stars. You are an all-star if you are named to the first or second all-star team after the season is over. That's what an all-star is. This is just a meaningless game, and you're an all-star game participant, but you're not an all-star player.
Correct.
So let's make that designation first of all. Secondly, I agree with Nathan MacKinnon 100%. Like really, like the All-Star game to me is the same as what the outdoor games are. They're huge for the locals. It's huge for the locals.
Yeah.
So like it's great for Las Vegas. They're going to be totally into it. It's going to be awesome for them.
Yeah.
It's a big who cares for literally everyone else.
Right.
Right? Like I'm tired of watching. I didn't even watch the last outdoor game. It's just a game now. Like I don't care.
Yeah, I went highlights on that.
Yeah, anyway, so to me it's a big who cares. Put the best players in. Like to me, like how do you have an all-star game? And I know he's not having an all-star year, but how do you have an all-star game without Sidney Crosby in it?
Yeah.
Like how do you do that?
Yeah.
Like what?
Yeah.
But I will say this. I don't think that putting the 9 best players from each division in the All-Star game, regardless of what team they play for, is going to make the All-Star game any better. It's not. Because you're just going to have a bunch of really good players who don't care as opposed to a bunch of other players who don't care.
Yeah. Pretty good players who don't care.
Yeah, they don't care. It's a weekend where they bring their families, they have parties, they have a bit of a blowout, they have a good time. And the skills competition in the All-Star game is the last thing they care about. And they will never be made to care about it. There's no format you can put together that will make these guys care about the game. Unless you say, $1 million a player for who wins or something.
Yeah.
They're not going to care.
Yeah.
So it's not going to make the game any better because you're just going to have a bunch of superstars who don't give a shit rather than a bunch of whatevers who don't care. Right. But I mean, you got to start somewhere. So get the best players together.
Yeah.
I can't imagine anybody more in Arizona is going to watch this game because Clayton Keller's playing in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or
especially if you're on such a, to your point about Clayton Keller and Nick Suzuki, especially if a lot of the more casual fans are so checked out, even the casual Montreal fans, even people that I've talked to, because my podcast is a Habs podcast, even people that I've talked to in the Montreal media have told me on the down low, I'm checked out of this. I'm so sick of covering this team, doing this stuff. And so if you're a casual fan and, you watch 65 out of the 82 games of the year, you're that kind of fan, right? You're not like in a losing year like this, you're not watching even that many games and you're not going, oh, Nick Suzuki's on the All-Star team. I can't wait to go and go and watch it.
That's our flag in the ground. There we go. Salvage the season right there. Nick Suzuki was MVP of the All-Star game and he won a car. Great. Yeah.
My thought for how to fix it in terms of both getting the players on board and whatever is actually getting the best at the different skills to compete.
Yeah.
And so what you do is you have, let's say, the Atlantic Division, right? Because we're talking there anyways. And you have all the players in the Atlantic Division vote. Who do you want to represent you for the hardest slap shot competition?
Right.
Who do you want to represent you for the fastest skater competition? Who do you want? And so instead of like, well, here's a bunch of guys that we brought in because we can, and we're going to just throw them into a skills competition. Instead of that, you've got a guy that just walks in and they're like, hey, you know what? This guy's slap shot is infuriating to block. And it doesn't matter that he sucks. I don't know. Maybe it's Mackenzie Weegar.
Yeah.
But who should not be an all-star by any definition of the term. I mean, he's having a good year. But you get into that situation then where there's a little bit more pride. You've been elected by your peers kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we're actually going to see the fastest skater. Yeah. Because I kept on, of course, covering Montreal, I kept on thinking, like, in Paul Byron's prime, I wanted to see Paul Byron go up against Connor McDavid when Byron was a real burner. Now, he couldn't do it with the puck on his stick like McDavid could, obviously.
No, but in a sprint?
But in a
Who
sprint,
knows, right? Who knows?
That's a question. Dylan Larkin.
Yeah. And cut back the events. Like, they always manage to make one of them like where you're sitting there going, I have no idea what's going on right now. I don't care.
Yeah.
And this is stupid. I was sitting there one time and it's like, are we in day 3 of the puck control competition yet? Like it's just ridiculous. Anyways, yeah. Enough about All-Star.
Moving off of the All-Star game and back to some very serious, dark discussion. The NHL and NHLPA have agreed to alter their COVID protocols, which is something that we actually talked about, I think, in our second podcast.
Did we? I don't remember.
Yeah, it's because the World Juniors was canceled.
Like I leave that door and it leaves me. I don't even remember anything.
We were talking about the World Juniors getting canceled, right? And we were talking about like, what do you do? And anyways, whatever.
Yeah.
It's what do you think about it? Like, what do you think? They've agreed to alter their protocols. Obviously, neither of us have access to the information and the data that they have access to.
Yeah.
And obviously, COVID has burned its way through much of the league at this point. You mentioned in your writing and also previously on this podcast about the New York Islanders specifically.
Yeah.
But, now that things are changing.
Well, I think the NHL, the reason why it sounds so drastic is the NHL has been pretty hyper vigilant as an industry in trying to keep this.
They've been the most vigilant of any of the pro sports that I'm aware of.
And of any industry, so now they're adjusting the playbook and I think it's fine. I mean, I think we're at the point where you don't have to test asymptomatic people every day.
Yeah.
And I think what you have to remember too is the NHL and the NHLPA, for everything that you want to say or criticize about them, and I've got a lot to criticize both of them for, they are relying on a team of epidemiologists and doctors who are experts in this field. Correct. They are following the science. They have followed the science since day one. And they haven't just listened to what the doctors have said and done whatever they wanted to do. They did what the doctors suggested they do from day one. And they've done a remarkable job, in my opinion, of making their way through this pandemic. Remarkable job. Like, you know, I mean, like I said, I've got a lot of problems with Gary Bettman. How he's handled this pandemic and got the NHL through this, I think is an enormous part of the positive part of his legacy here.
Yeah.
So let's get that out of the way, first of all. Secondly, you're dealing with a group that is young, healthy, robust, and vaccinated.
Yeah.
Right? Except for one player.
Yep.
Everybody's vaccinated. And so, you know, I mean, there's not much of a threat to the players. There's not a huge threat to the community. I think we're sort of all learning to adjust to this new variant and the threats that it exposes us to, and sort of the risk reward. And I think the NHL's done a good job of that. And I think where they're going right now is probably the right way to go. And I have no doubt that if things go south, they'll turn it right back, and they'll talk to the experts, and they'll figure out what to do.
Yeah.
But where I'd have a problem is if I'm like Lou Lamoriello, for instance. I believe the New York Islanders season has been killed, has been totally submarined by COVID protocols this year.
Yeah.
Like it screwed them.
Yeah.
And they're out of the playoffs and they ain't getting back in.
Yeah.
You know, Montreal had 24 guys in COVID protocol.
Yeah.
Toronto actually got lucky because all their guys got it over the Christmas break. So it didn't really affect them. And, you know, we've canceled all these. We've postponed all these games. We don't know who's playing one night to the next. You know, we're in a country where guys can play, but nobody can come and watch them play.
Yeah.
You know, so I can see where the frustration is. And I'd be pretty pissed if I were Lou Lamoriello and the New York Islanders, because they were looking for some kind of relief when this happened and they didn't get it.
Yeah.
You know? And now their season's been scuttled.
Yeah. Washington Capitals as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're looking for some cap relief. I would say, like, I'm of two minds of this.
Tampa Bay Lightning played with 4 defensemen last night.
That's right. 4
defensemen. It wasn't COVID related, but it was injury related. But they couldn't call anybody up from the taxi squad because it's only for COVID reasons.
Right.
Right. So anyways, 4 defensemen. Victor Hedman played 32 minutes and 37 seconds last night. And
that's a lot of wear and tear on a big body.
Yeah, but he's like a cyborg.
No, but I'm just saying, there's just physics to it, which is the impact on a large body like that.
Yeah, especially when a guy just like wipes him out with a cross check right in front of the net.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Going back, I'm of two minds of this. On one hand, if they're saying that they're looking at the infections, they're tracking them, right? Yeah. And if they see that the infections are not, for the most part, making their ways into greater society, not reaching people that are more vulnerable, and are basically just, we've tested this guy, he's positive, he's quarantined, he comes out, and then it's all good.
Right.
If they're seeing that the data is not suggesting that this testing is really helping, then I agree with you. The only part that I have an issue with is that as a father of a young 2-year-old that cannot be vaccinated, I'd be a little bit pissed in the sense that now my workplace, which is the NHL, not my workplace.
Yeah.
But, you know, now my workplace is all of a sudden sending people out to work that are potentially infected, that could be a carrier, make me a carrier, and spread that to my child.
But how does that differ from retail or any other job that they have to be at, where you don't test people every single day, right?
No, it absolutely doesn't. I mean, that's a different discussion about society and our values as a whole.
Right. And I think the other thing we have to mention too is that, you know, these teams and these players and everybody in these franchises, they're all still having to adhere to the local, provincial, state, national restrictions, whatever they are, you know, so they have to follow those still. Yeah. And they are and have been doing that as well. Yeah. So, but yeah, you're right. I mean, yeah.
That's the only place where I see an issue with it. But obviously the two things that I'm talking about is the difference between the individual's response to it being, I'm a father and I don't want to put my kids at risk. And the collective response to it, which is our data suggests that the likelihood of putting, at-risk people at risk is low.
Right.
And so that's always the greatest debate in society is, if I want to go all nerdy Spock Star Trek, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Right?
Yeah. But I mean, you have a child in daycare, right?
Yeah.
So the chances of that being reversed are a lot worse. Like, I think there's a bigger chance that
she picks it up
at daycare and brings it home to you guys.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And we struggled. We didn't have her in daycare until just this month because we struggled with that idea. Yeah. But anyways, we can get into the vaccinations and the whole thing about it. But
But I think as far as the NHL is concerned, obviously we're going to see a lot fewer positives. We're going to see a lot fewer canceled games and postponed games. Mm-hmm. Case counts are going to go down. And I think it's, the NHL will have a puncher's chance of getting an 82 game season in.
Yeah.
And so if they can do it safely, which I'm confident they can because they're listening to the experts.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah. Final topic of the day.
Yep.
Most underrated player in the NHL these days. Who do you got?
I'm going to go with Ivan Barbashev of the St. Louis Blues. I know he's benefited from playing with like Tarasenko and guys, and he's also actually been playing lately with Braden Shen and Ryan O'Reilly.
Yeah.
So he's doing okay, but he's like a point a game guy.
Yeah.
It's like got 34 points. He's got 15 goals. He hits. Like he leads the team in hits. They're not a very physical team. I think he's got like 63 hits and he leads the team. So they're not super physical, but he does all those things. And he just like Ivan Barbashev, like, holy cow. I watched him play the other night and he had 2 goals. He was one of the best players on the ice.
Yeah.
So I just look at a guy like that and it's like, wow, that guy is super underrated.
Yeah. I've got Jason Robertson of the Dallas Stars.
Yep.
Here's what I did. I went real nerdy, as I know you love. I looked for points per 60 minutes of play.
Yeah.
And I started going down the list. And, anyways, this is reverse engineering it. But first on the list, obviously, Nikita Kutrov. Nazem Kadri's having himself a year. Max Pacioretty. Brad Marchand.
None of those guys is underrated, though. None of them. No.
Yeah. Jonathan Huberdeau.
Yeah.
Nathan McKinnon, Connor McDavid, Brian Rust, Timo Meier, then Jason Robertson. He's ahead of Kirill Kaprizov. He's ahead of Jordan Kyrou. He's ahead of Mikko Rantanen. And then, on top of that, going even nerdier with the stats, he's got a 61% Corsi for percentage. So he's controlling possession. Way more shot attempts are happening while he's on the ice for his team than against his team.
Right.
And so I, of course, when you're trying to watch the whole NHL, you see these guys in passing. So I started watching a little bit more clips of him and then started to read more about him. Went on an 8-game point streak this year.
Yeah.
And I haven't heard a single person mention his name outside of Dallas media.
Yeah. Well, he was a finalist for the Calder Trophy last year, wasn't he?
He might have been.
Yeah, I think he was.
He might have been, but
yeah. No, and you know what? And I mean, granted, he's playing with Joe Pavelski, who's having a great year too. Again,
yeah. Defying the age.
But I mean, I've talked to people in the Dallas organization, and the reason why he's playing with Pavelski is because Pavelski wants to play with him. Joe Pavelski wants to play with that guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're obviously bringing out the best in each other. Yeah. And he's earned that. He's earned the right to put himself on that line and have that kind of a role. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
He was a second round draft pick as well. He was never projected to be this.
Right.
He's projected to be good.
Right.
Fine.
Yeah.
I mean, if you read the draft,
wonder how his brother's going to turn out in Toronto. Nick Robertson. We keep hearing how great he is, and then we keep waiting.
He doesn't do it.
But
injuries have plagued him a lot in Toronto as well.
I mean, it's a tough lineup. Yeah. You got to be at a top 6 role to be able to show what you can do and contribute that way. And tough to break into that top 6.
Yeah, no
kidding. A little bit difficult.
pretty set. Although that being said, I mean, with the departure of Zach Hyman in the offseason, there's definitely a little bit more wiggle room.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. What do you think? You want to get out of here?
Wondering if there's anything else we need to talk about.
Oh, let's see here. We could do more on the All-Star game if you like.
No.
No?
No.
Well, that was great. Thanks so much for sticking around throughout this whole podcast. Well, that's if you did. Although if you're watching this, never mind. Check us out. YouTube, subscribe, comment, like, notification bell. I don't know whatever people say. Apple Podcasts, leave reviews. We got a review on Castbox, which is a very not well-known podcast player, but it's actually my personal podcast player, and I really appreciate that. And, of course, check out our mybookie.com promo code, Hockey Unfiltered, all one word, and check out kencampbell.substack.com for more writing, more on what we've talked about here, and, of course, more on what we didn't talk about here. And we'll talk to you next week.